next to the creek, any expansion we do with tanks has got to go the other direction. And that's
But we're also, guys, we're trying to be somewhat proactive. We could have probably got by with just a little bit smaller basin, but with the properties that you guys have that's potential to develop, you know, we don't want to, you guys have come to us and say, can you serve this if such and such goes there? And we're like, well, we really don't have the capacity. Well, now we're able to up that capacity somewhat for future development, hopefully, too, so. But if you guys don't have any more questions, I mean, or if you do, feel free to let us know or whatever, and kind of go from there on it.
A couple of technical questions. I've never been to your plant, so I don't know the process. Is it an activated sludge process with a clarifier?
Yes.
Okay.
It's for package plants is pretty much what it is. It's
Yeah.
the two they move from here and they put two in pretty much just identical to it.
For the rest of my college players, you got some experience here. Think of it as a surge protector. To keep the plant running well, you've got to have consistent flows. So this equalization tank, the level's going to float as the demand increases, but your flows through the treatment process and your chemicals are going to be fairly continuous and fairly controlled. There'll be some minor changes, but you won't see huge changes that you're trying to react to. So this is a very logical thing to do from my perspective.
Other questions? Anything further?
I don't have anything to add unless you guys have anything.
Do we have any use for all this property back here?
That's up to you, you own it.
Well, it's cutting
You want to
this,
build a house there or something?
it's cutting this triangle out of the middle.
It looks like the rest of Crittenden, the city.
Well, that's
Have you
true.
seen our maps?
We got a jagged edge on every
We got a
corner.
jagged edge everywhere.
If you get this extra land, would that also in the future, if you ever had to put another one, would you have enough land to put another one?
That would give us room probably to grow somewhat, yeah. I don't know how much. See, probably, to be honest with you guys, our next step as far as growth would be actually putting in another plant. But that would go along with the property that we have existing. I really can't foresee us really going that direction that we're asking for now any further than that. But there's no guarantee, I guess.
if you look at this, there's the existing plant. This is extent area, we own or have this part right here, this section, 5 acres. What we're asking for is this little bit right up in here.
How much do we own of?
You own all of this.
You don't have like 20 acres down there.
But see, this is,
And it's all sloped downhill into a creek?
yeah, because our plant dumps into this
That's a
creek.
big holler down there.
That's a big house.
Yeah, here's my 5 acres. That's our 5 acres highway.
It was established when they, I don't know if you're all on. There's the existing plant. And what we're looking for is right up in here.
This is coming off Claiborne.
This was a temporary access road, and now this is the road we use to go Claiborne.
It was
So
designed
we've got
for-
all of this area that's already given to us.
Given to the city.
That's the 5 acres.
From the guy that.
But in order, if we put anything this way, we've got a holler and creek that goes across here. So if we expand the plant, it's obvious it's gonna go this way. But because of the way the plant was set in there, the fence line and that, we
As long as you have
can't put that
road.
tank, like this is an electric line, I guess, that comes down, or our line that comes down. So we can't put that plant
Property line is here.
up here unless we get this
You know, we don't want a dead space.
area.
Property there.
Right.
And what all, I'm not
So
sure
we're just
what all
wanting enough to kind
property
of get.
the city has.
All of this,
Kind of where we're at.
All this over here.
yeah, and all of this up in here.
Land that we can't
And
develop
then you
anything.
can see where your subdivision lots are, you own everything that's not in the lot. I think originally it was planned,
Future time in mind.
Hey, Brian,
Yeah, we got a permit wall right through today.
I think it was supposed to be green area.
so would we be landlocked?
No
No more than we are
Kids
already?
play in or something like that.
Actually go all the way to Indian Hills.
Okay.
on this, yes, on this side. This is the old road, the gravel road. So you all still go all the way up there.
So one
This is north here.
right?
Yes.
Thank you.
It is, and we do have in the summertime that it gets packed.
Okay, anyone have any other questions? Todd, you good?
We're good.
Danny? Everybody good? All right, anybody, have any motions they wish to make at this point? You know the request is the conveyance of, about 3/10 of an acre to, the sewer district.
And it's not gonna landlock us, they said, because we own all the way up to Indian Hill on there, so and if we want more businesses to come here, they're gonna have to be
This
able
is
to handle,
inevitable, it's gonna have to happen.
they're gonna be need to handle
Can we do
their
it?
food.
Can we do a trade-off to where it gets surveyed,
So what's currently been surveyed?
It's already
a
done.
new plat cut?
Well,
I'm not following you.
we'd have to have that surveyed, that corner surveyed off and added to our thing.
They're gonna have to furnish a legal description.
Yes.
In order to get it done, so,
We'll pay for the survey and all that, but
okay.
Can we get a copy of that when you're done?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sean was just asking what we need to do. The first thing you need to do is, we'll get a legal description, if you all vote to do this. Get a legal description, and they can furnish that. We'll have to declare that property surplus to the needs of the city for the purpose of conveyance. You decide what you're gonna do, if you're gonna do it. Then we prepare a deed, you authorize me to sign it on behalf of the city. That's the process, if you wanna do it. That's your own decision at this point, so whatever motion,
I'll make a motion that we transfer the land.
convey the property.
I second
I'll
it.
second it.
Okay, I heard 3 or 4 seconds, who wants to second?
I'll go with Danny.
I heard Danny first, okay. All right, those people, everybody, now we have a motion second, is there any discussion further?
Well, I really think we need to do the EQ plan. It makes perfect sense for better management of the facility and for the future.
I'm sorry, do the what now?
We need to have this EQ plan, so it makes perfect sense in how to run that plan.
So we've got a first and second, discussion. Ready to vote? Those in favor of conveying the property, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign, thank you. If you all get us a legal description,
We'll start that process and get it to you.
just get it to the clerk.
Okay.
We'll bring it back to council for declaring the property surplus to the needs of the city, and then we can do a deed to it.
Okay, we thank you all for
Thank you.
everything.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And like we do our meetings, when we get done with our part, the people leave. Thank you all, appreciate it.
Bobby, you have anything you wish to talk to council about at this point on item number 6?
I'm gonna do some more homework at this time.
All right, we'll pass that till next time then. Ordinance number 293, 2021, is an ordinance concerning the part-time code enforcement officer. It had a first reading. No, it's on for first reading tonight, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, this is ordinance number, 293, 2021. It's an ordinance relating to employment of a part-time code enforcement officer for the city of Crittenden. Whereas the city of Crittenden, hereinafter city, has heretofore created and does hereby restate the non-elected office of code enforcement officer. And whereas the city now wishes to provide for the regulation of the office by establishing the maximum number of hours such position shall be entitled to occupy each month. And whereas the city wishes to establish the pay classification of said position as grade 30 according to the city pay classification scale. Now therefore be it hereby ordained that the non-elected office of code enforcement officer be restated, that the maximum number of hours said position shall be entitled to occupy on a monthly basis shall not exceed 99 hours monthly, that the actual number of hours be established by the mayor on a weekly basis within the parameters of this ordinance, that the duties of the code enforcement officer be guided by the duly enacted ordinances of the city of Crittenden and the laws of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, that to facilitate the performance of the duties imposed by ordinance or statute, the code enforcement officer possess those duties allowed by law and specifically preferred by KRS 83A 087 relating to the issuance of citations. Oh, it's on for first reading tonight. We don't really need to vote on anything since it's only a first reading, but if anyone wishes to discuss it, we'll open the floor at this point for discussion.
I know what you said, but I just want to go over it again.
Sure.
And maybe one day you might understand why this is an hourly position. I know it says that, but this is an hourly position. And the mayor will determine how many hours a week that it's supposed to be.
That's, okay, let me answer a couple of things. I know where you're going, I know where you're coming from, and you're concerned based upon prior experience, I understand that. It is an hourly position. It's gonna be left, in this instance, pretty much to what council wants to do with this, to be honest with you. The maximum number of hours is there simply because we want to be sure we're under 100 because of retirement purposes. And what was the second part of your question?
Just making sure that it's an hourly,
It
it's
is.
not salary,
It is an hourly position.
and you determine how many hours it's gonna be.
Yes, only because the mayor is the one who has to supervise, but I will take the input of council. You probably well aware of that by now. Other question?
Will we need to do a new job description for the personnel policy for this?
We don't have to, but if you would feel more comfortable doing it, it probably would be a good idea to do that. We do have a pay classification already set, it is later. The law pretty much outlines what their duties are. We have a property maintenance code already, which needs to be looked at and abided by. So a great deal of that is done. But I understand the concerns that a lot of people have, so yes, if you want to do that. And one of the reasons I thought we need to look at this now is because we're getting into the budget process.
Right.
This is something that, although it says 99 hours, I don't see how it could be possible that anybody would need that many hours to do the kind of job that he's doing. I could be wrong.
Well,
But I
the
think-
last four that we had ran right up to
Well,
89.
well, I don't know. You know, as I say, I don't see it. I'm thinking something more in the neighborhood of 8 or 9 hours a week, maybe 10. I don't know. That would be, in my opinion, enough if it's done correctly. But again, a lot of this is going to depend on how you all want to do this. If you want to work on a personnel, if you want to work on something having to do with the job description that you feel more comfortable with, do that. Submit it. We'll take a look at it and see where we go.
I
Other
think,
questions?
I'm just more concerned too about the person being well-trained and not putting out threatening letters, prematurely. I think we need to work with people, our citizens, on things that are violating code or whatever, rather than just, threaten to sue them, right up front.
And you and I talked about this by text.
Right,
Again, that has a lot more to do with the person filling the position than the
Right.
position. We talked about that as far as, we need somebody with common sense to do this, and we would hope that we can do that we can get somebody with common sense to fill the job. If we don't, we can always get somebody else.
I'd like to see any letters that are sent out, that a copy goes to you prior.
That's not a problem.
That way, you at least get to see it before it.
The phone calls, before the phone calls start coming.
We talked about writing up some standard letters for all these processes, so it's followed evenly, it's not
yeah,
altered much, except for address and, date.
yeah.
Yeah, and that
Yeah,
could
we
be
can
part
have
of,
a
that
form
could be a
letter.
part of the, that could be a part of the job description as well.
Yeah, and I think that happened in the past. There were some letters that went out to people that were threatening and, harassing that didn't even get reviewed by an attorney or anyone. So I don't want to put the city into a position where we'd be.
No, I don't think any of us are going to get in that position, so I agree.
I guess I would like to make one comment too, to Jennifer's point. We need to hire someone with the right people skills and management skills, but we also need to manage them properly.
Correct.
So, to that point, my issues, I'm all in favor of this long term, once our legal issues are behind us. But if we get a good job description in place and those requirements, that'll take care of itself probably in that time. But we could still proactively budget for that in
Absolutely.
the budget while we're working on it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, and I'm gonna share some things with, that the Downtown Development Committee spoke about, you know, issues. There are a lot of issues that need to be dealt with, and they're code problems. So
Correct.
we need someone.
And I reviewed a lot of those that the people were talking about, and that was
Yeah,
part of the impetus for some of this.
yeah, we need it.
Other discussion?
One comment for council, think about that, this person has to drive around the city, and how we're gonna have to gather the mileage used, because
Right.
the vehicle that they're gonna use is probably gonna be their personal vehicle, so that gets a little, not to use say more subjective, but at the same breath, just a heads up.
And again, that's a part of our planning process, our budget, so.
Yeah, I can just see me being very highly intensely watching the mileage, I just don't wanna be there, so just a heads up.
Dave, you got a question?
Just a curiosity, but if you said, I know how the council, the previous councils had addressed this, setting aside X amount of money, okay? And in my opinion, it'd be a very fluid job position, because one week you may be out 18 hours and next week you may be out 1. So how would you, within the bounds of the salary or the money you set aside, figure out what an hourly rate would be worth?
That's already established, actually.
It is?
It is.
Yes, yeah, it's already established in your grade 30.
Well, that's how you handle it then. Way to go, guys. Girls. Thank you.
Other discussion? Okay. We'll move that along then and set it for, why don't we move that for a month on the next agenda rather than,
End of March or April,
Make it the first of next month.
Let's go, April.
the second Tuesday of April, okay.
Okay, municipal order 01, 2021, what, is that the one on the appointment of,
It is.
I also nominate Michelle to do the job description.
okay,
She volunteered over here.
what do we need to do on the municipal order?
I've got something else for you.
They haven't, they've not discussed it, they've not appointed somebody, it's not, it's still moving.
You all have a copy of the municipal order?
It's also a screen too.
Okay, and you understand what it is? Anybody have any questions on it, how you going to proceed on it, what are you going to do? It's up to you all at this point. It is a municipal order. That's something that's done by council, by law. So, we need 3 people to serve, 1 or 2 for 2 years and 1 for 1 year. I will leave it, it's open at this point for discussion if you wish to discuss it, or if you have anybody you'd like to put on it, you need to do it within 30 days, or you forfeit the right to do it, and it passes at that point, I think, to the governor, does it not? I've forgotten, I looked, but it passes to someone other than the council.
Yeah, it's-
How many days we have left?
What was the date of the ordinance?
Last year, or last month?
Well,
You're getting pretty close, whatever it was, I don't know, it's been.
Have we had anybody show interest in
The
it?
second reading of the ordinance, right? You're looking for?
I'd like to see,
It's the
I'd
second reading when it passed.
like to ask the most experienced person in the room if he would like to sit as the director on this.
Okay, ask.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Yes.
are you willing to commit a 2-year project here?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful.
Then I nominate Lee Burton.
You're nominating Lee. And again, it's a council process.
You have 30 days.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion on Lee to serve a 2-year term? Is that what you just said?
I think that's an excellent choice.
And we're gonna rely on him to help fill the other 2 positions?
Well,
No,
you don't have to. Council appoints them. However, I would think it would behoove you to at least talk with him a bit, see if he has somebody in mind that he can work with. You know, I've talked to Lee before. I thought perhaps someone would be interested in speaking with him since he's probably the most experienced around. And I asked him to look into these matters, so you might, you know, Lee, have you talked to anybody?
Yes, I've talked to several persons. There have been some persons that are a little mistaken in thinking about the scope of the taxing district. One person I had in mind that I wanted to talk with, and I think would be a good person to consider, would be Miss Amanda Roberts. She is taking a big interest in the city.
She has shown the ability to keep the city's interests in mind, but she's very fair and open. The other, and I'm trying to think of what Lance's last name is.
Robinson?
Robinson. Lance's former council member. He too lives in the city. He's shown that he's very financially minded and has an executive thought process. And I think he would do quite well.
Has he retired?
He has not retired as of yet.
Bill says he does.
He has?
Yeah, he
Well, then
retired
there we go.
in the spring.
Have you,
That's another person that I would like to see.
are you gonna interview him? Are we gonna interview him?
At the council's pleasure, whichever one you wish. I'll
Adam,
be
would
glad
you
to
be
talk to
interested
them and see
in
what
doing
they
something
say.
like that?
Am I allowed to be on, am I still on code enforcement board, technically? Am I allowed to be on more than one?
I would have to look whether or not that's a conflict. I can't answer that without having an opportunity to look at it.
I would be interested if it's not a conflict between the two.
Okay.
Before we vote on this, can we change the wording from the period of 1 year
Yes.
and change that to 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can
But
vote on
that's-
that. I mean,
That's how this is wrote right now. I don't want to
Sean
vote
can
on
make,
that.
Sean can make paperwork fit, if I already voted. If you want him to do, that's no problem.
You want 2 for all 3?
No,
No.
it can't be. It's
Two for director.
1 for 1. They have to be staggered. 2 for 2, 1 for 1.
Are we bound to the same 30-day time constraint for number 2 and number 3?
Yes, you have 30 days to make the appointments.
So we
How much
got,
time do we have?
today.
That means today, yeah.
Well, 30 days technically with 28-day month, you technically have 2 days to,
So how much time we got left?
yeah, 2 days.
That was pointed out 30 days ago, too.
Well, yeah, I mean, February's a short month, so you got 2 days.
well, I guess the only thing we can do is come back and have a special meeting in a couple of days after we
You
have
can,
time to
unless
think
you want
about
to
it.
just take a few minutes here and talk to the chief and decide what you're gonna do now. You can do that, too.
Are all the people that he's recommending in this room right now?
No.
No, Lance is-
Do they all reside in Crittenden?
Yes, it is.
yeah, Lance does.
Does Lee have the ability to remove either number 2 or number 3 if they don't work out?
No.
Once they're
That
approved by
comes
the
back to
council,
us.
Once they're appointed, there's a statute that sets out how they have to be removed. And there's a reason.
We know how that works out.
Would somebody be able to, like us pass this to later in the meeting, try to reach out to the people in the meantime, let's revisit it
You
later
all
on in
can
the
do this
meeting?
any way
And
you
then
want.
that way.
That's the reason it's a municipal order. It's totally the
Yep.
council's decision how you do this.
Do you have Lance's phone
You
number?
can draw them out of a hat.
I do.
So it's totally up to you all.
You wanna call him, Lee?
yes, if you don't mind.
Then might as well call who the other person is.
Let me-
About the conflict.
We're gonna table discussion.
And Adam, I'd hate for you to take that position and then.
Yeah, I don't, I prefer to stay on code enforcement, so, especially if that's gonna start back up.
Okay.
So if if it's not a conflict,
It's
I have
not
no
a
problem
city-
being on both.
Yeah, that's going to 2 taxing districts. Those are 2 separate taxing districts. You got the city on one end, you got, I would guess, and this is a guess without looking, that it would be a conflict because it's 2 separate taxing districts. But I don't know that. I'm not gonna say that for sure, but from his vantage point, he's taking a chance, if he accepts it, that he'd be off the first one.
And he wants to be on the first one.
Correct. So if it's not a conflict and you need a third person, I would be happy to do it. If it is a conflict and I can't, then I can't.
But
That
we have
answer
2
your
days to
question,
figure it
Dan?
out.
I can probably figure it out. If y'all want to take 10 minutes here, I can go look at it and see what the statute says, unless it's necessary that we get an opinion on it, but.
It's only 10 minutes.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute recess, we'll reconvene at 8 minutes after 8. Thank you.
Recess. Ms. Roberts,
Sir?
can I talk with you for a second, if you please?
Yeah, for 10 minutes.